Welcome to Race to the Finish. In this series, we will take a look at some of the thrilling, down-to-the-wire playoff races of the wildcard era. The criteria for the playoff races that I will cover goes as follows. There must have been at least 3 teams involved in the race, and the featured teams can have clinched a playoff spot until the final day of the season. However, in this episode, we will be breaking at least one of those rules. Now, on to episode 7. The American League West was a 3-team race throughout most of the 2004 season. The AL West had been the best division in the American League since the turn of the century, with the AL wildcard representative coming from that division 3 out of the previous 4 years. The Oakland Athletics had made the playoffs the previous 4 seasons, and had won the division in 3 of those. In spring training, though, Stars second baseman Mark Ellis injured his shoulder in a collision with rookie shortstop Bobby Crosby, and Ellis was ruled out for the rest of the season. The A's started out 2004 slow, as much as 6.5 games back in the division in early May. However, they caught fire the rest of the spring, taking the division lead in June. They spent most of July in second place behind the Rangers, but took the lead seemingly for good at the end of the month. In the previous 4 years, the A's were a second-half team. In 2000, they finished the season 22-6 to clinch a playoff spot on the final day of the season. In 2001, they went 64-18 over their final 82 games to turn an under 500 season into a 100-win season. In 2002, they finished the season 43-12, including a 20-game winning streak, to win the division and again win 100 games. In 2003, they went 50-31 in the second half to overcome a 7-game deficit to the Mariners to win the division. 2004 was looking no different as they went 20-6 after August 7th to take a 4-game lead entering Labor Day weekend. The Anaheim Angels hadn't made the playoffs since winning the World Series 2 years earlier. They started off hot at 29-15 with a 3.5-game lead in the division. However, they slumped in June and were only 42-39 at the halfway point. They were in 3rd place in the division and trailed by as much as 6 games on July 21st. However, they went 19-8 in August to climb to within striking distance of the A's by Labor Day. The Oakland A's were the hottest team in MLB in the month of August, going 20-7 in their previous 27 games entering Labor Day, second only to the wildcard leading Red Sox, who had gone 22-5 over that same stretch. The two faced off against each other for a 3-game series in Oakland, starting on Labor Day evening. The Red Sox made quick work of the A's, sweeping the 3-game series. None of the games were particularly close either. Fortunately for the A's, the Angels had lost 2 of 3 at home to the last-place Blue Jays during this time, so their division lead didn't shrink by that much. On the night of Friday, September 10th, the Angels welcomed the White Sox to town for 3. Tied at 2 in the bottom of the 7th, reliever John Atkins came on with 2 on and 1 out, and on his very first pitch, he allowed a 3-run homer to Vlad Guerrero, and the Angels took a 5-2 lead. The White Sox got 3 of their own in the top of the 8th off K-Rod, and would have taken the lead had it not been for this nice play from Sean Figgins to keep the game tied. In the bottom of the 8th, Garrett Anderson lined a 2-out 2-run single to give the Angels the lead back, and they won 7-5. That night in Oakland, the A's played their first of 3 games against the Indians. They went to extras, and Eric Chavez, who had a home run earlier in the night, had the chance to play hero with the bases loaded and 2 down, but Jody Garrett made a game-saving catch in right field, sending the game to the 11th. This was right after Nick Swisher made a great catch, keeping the game tied in the top of the 11th. In the 12th, Casey Blake hit a solo shot off Justin Dukeshire, and the A's had lost 5 straight, and their division lead was down to 1 game. The A's and Indians were back at it again the next afternoon, a battle of aces between CC Sabathia and Rich Harden. The A's were on their way to their 6th straight loss after Travis Hafner hit a 3-run homer off Harden in the 7th to give the Tribe a 4-0 lead. However, the A's wouldn't give up and scored 3 of their own off Sabathia in the bottom of the 7th to make it a 1-run game. In the bottom of the 8th, Bobby Crosby hit a solo home run to tie the game at 4 off Bob Howry. The next man up was Nick Swisher.
They've tied it up, and now the 2-2 pitch on the way. Ripped to right, way back. Back on it, Garrett at the track, looking up, gone, and the A's have taken the lead. Nick Swisher with his second major league home run. Back-to-back here in the 8th inning. The kids, Crosby and Swisher, and it's 5-4 Athletics.
The A's maintained their lead in the division. That night in Anaheim, the Angels had a chance to stay within a game of the A's, but shot themselves in the foot early on. This included Darren Erstad being thrown out at third on a single to left in the first inning. Then Adam Kennedy couldn't catch a flip from David Eckstein, and starter Aaron Seeley interfered with teammate Benji Molina on a foul pop-up. The Sox scored 8 times in the second inning, 4 of which were unearned, all charged to Seeley, and the Sox won 13-6, helping out the A's. On Sunday, the Angels took the series behind 7 shutout innings from Bartolo Colon, and they blanked the White Sox 11-0. Later that day, the A's and Indians played on Sunday Night Baseball. Marubio Durazo hit a solo home run in the second off Jake Westbrook, and that was all the A's needed. Barry Zito pitched 7 scoreless innings, and Octavio Dotel worked around a couple base runners in the ninth for his 34th save of the season. With 20 games to go, the A's held their 2-game lead in the division. Both the A's and Angels would play only AL West teams the rest of the way. On Monday night, the Angels began their 4-game series against the Mariners, who, after 4 straight winning seasons, were dead last in the division and on pace to lose 100 games. The only thing that their fans had to cheer about was Ichiro's quest to break George Sisler's record for most base hits in a single season. The Angels took Game 1 thanks to a 3-run homer from Garrett Anderson, and the Angels won 5-1. Down in Oakland, the A's welcomed the Rangers, who were still in the running for the division at 5 games back for 4 games. Tied at 5 in the ninth, things got interesting in an unexpected way.
Throwing a chair into the stands for some reason. The entire Ranger team holding Brocail back, screaming at the fan. Francisco's throwing the chair, and it hit a lady in the face. Buck Showalter getting into things. It's an entire mess. Security on the field trying to keep people apart. Another look at the chair, the lady conked in the face. This isn't good for baseball. But it happened, and we're showing it to you. Security came down, the umps came down, tried to keep people away. The game continued.
In the top of the 10th, with runners on the corners and 1 down, Brian Jordan hit a soft grounder to second that the A's were unable to turn a double play on, and the Rangers took the lead. Closer Francisco Cordero ran into trouble in the bottom of the 10th, loading the bases with nobody out, and walked Mark McLemore to tie the game. After retiring the next 2, Eric Chavez came up.
Swung line drive, center field, and it's into base hit, and the A's have won this nerve-wracking first game of the 4-game series.
It was the 3rd straight 1-run win for the A's, who kept their 2-game division lead. On Tuesday night, the Angels and Mariners were scoreless into the 5th, until Ichiro hit an RBI ground rule double to break the deadlock. Randy Wynn hit a 2-run homer in the 7th to give the M's a 3-0 lead. The Angels scored 2 in the 9th, but Jeff Devannon lined out to right with 2 on and 2 out, and the Mariners held on. Although it wasn't all bad for the Angels, as the Rangers scored 7 runs off starter Mark Redmond and won 12-9 in a slugfest. With 18 games left, the A's led the Angels by 2 games and the Rangers by 5. On Wednesday night, the Angels and Mariners were locked in a pitcher's duel between John Lackey and Ryan Franklin. In a scoreless game in the bottom of the 8th, Ichiro reached on a 1-out infield single. 2 batters later, with runners at the corners and 2 down, Raul Ibanez singled off K-Rod, and the Mariners held on once again for their 2nd consecutive 1-run victory in their quest to play spoiler. Down in Oakland, tied at 2 in the 6th, Mark Teixeira gave the Rangers the lead for good with a 3-run home run. Hank Blaylock added another home run in the 9th, and the Rangers won 10-3. Not only were they helping out the Angels, but they were also helping out their own cause, now only 4 back in the division. On Thursday afternoon, the A's looked to salvage a series split versus the oncoming Rangers. Trailing 4-2 in the 5th, Bobby Crosby delivered a bases-clearing double to give the A's the lead. In the 8th, with the Rangers still trailing by 1, Alfonso Soriano successfully stole third base with 2 outs, but injured his hamstring on the play and would miss the rest of the season. A big blow to the Rangers, who were still in the hunt for the playoffs. The Rangers did not score that inning. In the ninth, Lance Nix led off with a double, and Rod Barajas attempted to advance him to third on a sacked bunt, but he was thrown out by closer Octavio Dotel, and the A's held on for the one-run victory. The A's were lucky to get a split, as each of their wins were by 1 run, and their 2 losses were by 3 and 7 runs respectively. That night in Seattle, the Angels were looking to get out of town with a split as well. Up 2-1 in the 8th, it looked like the Mariners might keep the deficit at 1 until Brett Boone's throw home hit the bat in front of the plate. The Angels wound up scoring 4 unearned runs that inning and won 6-1. With 16 games to go, there was no change from 4 days earlier. The Angels remained 2 games back of the A's, while the Rangers were still 5 back. On Friday night, the Rangers scored 3 runs in the top of the first in Anaheim, thanks to home runs from Hank Blaylock and Mark Teixeira. However, Vlad answered back with a solo shot in the bottom half of the inning to put the Angels on the board. Tied at 3 in the 5th, Vlad led off with another home run to give the Halos the lead, his 32nd home run of the season. The Angels won 9-5. Up in Seattle, the A's led 3-1 into the 7th until Chad Bradford loaded the bases with no one out. Ricardo Rincon came on to protect the lead, but allowed a bases-clearing double to Greg Dobbs. The Mariners scored 2 more that inning and won 6-3. It was a great night for the Angels, as they gained ground on the A's and were just 1 game back in the division again. On Saturday afternoon, the Rangers led 1-0 in the 3rd, but the Angels were threatening with runners on the corners and 2 down. But starter Joaquin Benoit snagged a liner from Jeff Vannon to rob him of an RBI single. The Angels again threatened in the 7th, but Darren Erstad grounded out with the bases loaded and 2 down to end the inning. The Rangers held on for a 2-0 victory using 7 pitchers. Up in Seattle, Eric Chavez had 2 hits, including a home run, and the A's won 7-4 to recapture their 2-game division lead. On Sunday, the Rangers and Angels were scoreless in the 4th, when Hank Blaylock led off the inning with a fly ball to right, but Vlad couldn't make the catch and was charged with an E9. 2 batters later, Kevin Mench singled home Blaylock, an unearned run. Up in Seattle, the A's and Mariners were tied at 1 in the 5th, until Chavez came through again with an RBI single, scoring Eric Burns. That score held into the 9th, where Octavio Dotel pitched a 1-3 inning, striking out Ichiro to get his 36th save of the season. Down in Anaheim, the Rangers shut out the Angels for the 2nd straight day, this one by a 1-0 score. It was certainly a blow for the Angels, who now trailed the A's by 3 games with 13 games left. The Rangers were still lurking around at 5 back, and would have a chance to get closer with a 3-game series at home against the A's upcoming. On Monday night, the Angels began a 3-game series at home against the Mariners. In the bottom of the 1st, there was a scary moment as Ryan Franklin hit Angels slugger Vlad Guerrero on the side of the head. He would have to be taken out of the game, but would return the next day. Later in the game, with the Angels up 3-0 in the 5th, second baseman Adam Kennedy hurt his knee while fielding a grounder from Ichiro, and he had to leave the game as well. Down by 2 in the 8th, the Mariners threatened with the bases loaded and 2 out, but K-Rod got Hiram Bocachica to ground out to end the threat, and the Angels won 5-2, gaining ground on the idled Athletics. On Tuesday, the A's and Rangers began a 3-game series in Arlington, with the Rangers looking to gain ground on the division leader. In the bottom of the 1st, Mark Teixeira hit a 2-run double off Mark Mulder to give the Rangers an early lead. In the 4th, up 3-2, Hank Blaylock reached on a Scott Atterberg error with 2 down, although replays showed that he was out. With the extra life, Mulder served up a grand slam to Michael Young, essentially putting the game out of reach, and the Rangers won 9-4. Out in Anaheim, Ichiro led off the game with yet another single, his first of 5 hits that night. The Mariners scored 3 runs that inning off former Mariner Aaron Seeley, as former Angel Scott Spezio contributed with a 2-run single. The Mariners won 7-3, and the Angels were unable to gain ground on the A's. On Wednesday, Barry Zito, who had never lost in the Rangers ballpark, started for the A's. Although just like Mulder the night before, it did not start out well for him. 2 batters into the game, the Rangers grabbed the lead thanks to a Blaylock RBI double. In the 2nd, the Rangers extended their lead on a Rod Barajas RBI double. With the game tied at 2 in the 4th, Eric Young Sr. delivered his first home run of the season, a 3-run shot off Zito. That would be enough, as the Rangers took their 2nd straight against the A's by a score of 5-3, closing to within 3 games of the division leader. Could the Angels take advantage of the A's loss this time? Well, the Mariners decided to play spoiler once again in their quest to avoid 100 losses. Ichiro had 4 hits, closing to within 11 of George Sisler's all-time single-season record. Raul Ibanez had 6 hits and 5 RBIs, and the Mariners ran away with this one 16-6, taking 2 of 3 from the Angels. For the second straight night, the Angels were unable to take advantage of the A's loss and had now lost 6 of their last 9 games. On Thursday, the A's looked to avoid the sweep and reclaim their 3-game lead in the division. They led 4-2 in the ninth, but closer Octavio Dotel allowed a solo shot to Hank Blaylock to make it a 1-run game. Then, Michael Young walked, and Teixeira was intentionally walked, putting the winning run on first base. The next man up, Brian Jordan, grounded up the middle, but the A's were only able to get 1 out on the play, keeping the game alive for David DeLucci. The Rangers were now tied with the Angels for second place in the AL West, and only 2 back of the A's with 10 games to go, very much alive in the division race. They now welcome the Mariners to town for 3, who were on a mission to avoid 100 losses, and for Ichiro to break George Sisler's single-season base hit record. On Friday night, with the game tied at 5 in the 4th, Blaylock gave the Rangers the lead with a 2-out RBI single. In the next inning, tied at 6, Jose Lopez hit a blooper into shallow center field, but Lance Nix came on to rob him of at least 2 RBIs, preserving the tie. Down 7-6 in the 7th, Brian Jordan delivered a 2-out solo shot to retie the game. In the 9th, with 2 down and the bases loaded, Randy Winn hit a slow chopper over the middle of the infield, which he beat out for an RBI infield single. That score would hold up, and the Mariners played spoiler once again. Later that night in Anaheim, the Angels and A's commenced a pivotal 3-game series. In the top of the first, Mark Kotsay and Mark McLemore led off the game with back-to-back doubles off Kelvin Escobar. Later in the inning, with the A's up 2-0, Marubio Durazo lifted a fly ball to deep left field, but Jose Quien couldn't hold on, and that scored Eric Chavez, making it 3-0. In the 4th, with the A's up 3-1, Eric Burns hit a 2-run homer to extend the lead to 5-1. Rich Harden pitched 7 innings, allowing only 2 runs, and the A's won the series opener 6-3 to regain their 3-game lead atop the AL West with just 9 games remaining. The 2 teams were at it again on Saturday afternoon. With the Angels trailing 1-0 in the bottom of the 5th, Darren Erstad hit a 3-run homer off Mark Redmond to give the Angels the lead, with one of those runs being unearned. However, in the next inning, Jermaine Dye hit a 2-run shot to tie the game at 3. That score held until the bottom of the 8th, when Garrett Anderson doubled home Alfredo Amezaga to give the Angels the lead. The Angels added another on a Sean Figgins RBI single, and won 5-3, climbing back to within 2 games of the Athletics. That night in Arlington, old man Edgar Martinez started the scoring by hitting a solo shot in the first, putting the Rangers in an early hole. In the 4th, tied at 2, Ichiro hit a 2-run single to give the M's a 4-2 lead, his 250th base hit of the season, only 7 back of George Sisler's single-season record. Down 4-3 in the 7th, the Rangers tied it on a Michael Young triple, scoring Hank Blaylock, and Young scored a couple batters later on a sac fly to give the Rangers the lead, which they held on to get back to 2 games back of the A's with 8 games to go. On Sunday, the Mariners looked to continue playing the role of spoiler in the AL West, as they scored 4 runs in the 2nd to take an early lead, thanks to a home run from Raul Ibanez and RBI doubles from Jose Lopez and Randy Winn. The Mariners routed the Rangers 9-0 in the rubber match. It was a missed opportunity for the Rangers, who could not gain ground on the division over the weekend despite facing the lowly Mariners, who now just needed to go 3-4 over their final 7 games to avoid 100 losses. That evening, the Angels and A's played on Sunday Night Baseball. Before the game, Angels star outfielder Jose Guillen was suspended by the team for the rest of the season after, quote, inappropriate conduct, after being lifted for a pinch runner the day before. Guillen had 27 home runs and 104 RBIs that year. How big of a blow would this be for the Halos? Well, that night, the Angels led 2-1 in the 4th, and Troy Gloss extended the lead by hitting a 2-run homer off starter Mark Mulder, who had struggled in September. The A's threatened down by 2 in the 8th, 2 on and 2 down, but K-Rod got Jermaine Dye to ground out to end the threat. The Angels added some insurance in the 8th on a Benji Molina suicide squeeze, scoring Vlad. Then David Eckstein hit a solo shot to give the Angels a 6-2 lead, a score at which they won by. The Angels were now only 1 game back of the A's with 7 games to go. The Rangers were still in the hunt at 2 back, but their chances were fading, especially since the A's and Angels would face each other the final weekend of the season in Oakland. The Angels traveled to Arlington for a 4-game series starting Monday night. If there was any chance for the Rangers to stay alive in the division race, they would need to win this series at home at the very least. The Rangers' negative momentum carried over from the weekend, as Vlad led off the second with his 34th home run of the season. Although the Rangers would score 3 to take the lead, the Angels tied it in the 8th. After a Sean Figgins RBI triple, Darren Erstad grounded to Teixeira at first, whose throw home beat Figgins, but he was able to slide around the tag, scoring the go-ahead run. With the Angels up 5-3 in the bottom of the 9th, the Rangers loaded the bases with no one out, but Troy Percival came on to relieve Bartolo Colon after 8+ innings. And Personal induced 2 pop-ups and struck out Brian Jordan to end the game. The Angels were now a half game back of the A's for the moment. Could the A's hold on to their division lead by the end of the night? The A's began the night with 3 singles off Jamie Moyer in the first and scored on Jermaine Dye's sac fly. They scored again on a Mark Kotsay RBI single in the second. After the Mariners scored 1 in the 5th, Dye and Marco Scutaro each hit home runs off Moyer in the 5th to grab a 5-1 lead, although the Mariners would come back. They have been playing spoiler for the last few weeks, and down by 3 in the 7th, Willie Bloomquist hit a game-tying 3-run homer off starter Barry Zito. That score held into the bottom of the 9th when Erubiel Durazo led off.
Kita got the Mariners out of a bases-loaded 1-out jam in the 6th inning. Pop-up, left field line, long run for Lopez and Dobbs, and dropping the ball out there in left field. Ibanez had it, throw to second, Durazo safe. Collision between Ibanez and Lopez. Down the left field line, just inside fair territory. Raul Ibanez coming in. Looked like he had it, but Lopez with the bump. And now the A's have the go-ahead run at second base.
This was the second time in the last few days in which Durazo reached second base because the left fielder couldn't make the catch. And somehow in both instances, he was awarded a double. After Durazo advanced to third on a groundout, Scott Hatteberg and Marco Scutaro were intentionally walked to load the bases, setting the stage for Bobby Crosby. The Rookie of the Year candidate lifted a fly ball to deep right field, deep enough to score the pinch runner Esteban Herman from third, and the A's kept their lead atop the AL West. With just 6 games to go, they led the Angels by 1 game, and the Rangers were running out of time, trailing by 3 games. On Tuesday night in Arlington, Vlad continued his tear, hitting a 2-out homer in the first to give the Angels an early lead, just like the night before. In the third, again with 2 outs, Vlad delivered an RBI double, scoring Troy Glaus. In the 5th, also with 2 outs, Garrett Anderson hit a 2-run homer, scoring Vlad to extend the lead to 4-0. In the 6th inning, with, you guessed it, 2 outs, Vlad hit a 3-run homer, his 36th homer of the year, to give the Angels an 8-0 lead, and they won by the score of 8-2. Could the Angels get some help from the Mariners this time? In Oakland, Ichiro led off the game with a double, his 253rd hit of the year, only 4 behind Sisler's record. The Mariners scored 3 times off Tim Hudson in the first inning, with RBI singles from Edgar Martinez and Jeremy Reed. With the Mariners up 4-2 in the 6th, Brett Boone hit a 2-run shot to extend the M's lead. Up 7-2 in the 7th, the A's loaded the bases with 2 outs off starter Gil Mesh, but Ron Vallone came in and got Durazo to pop out to end any sort of threat, and the Mariners won by that score, helping out the Angels for the day. The A's and Angels were now tied for the division lead with 5 games to go. The last time the A's did not have sole possession of first place in the division was August 5th, 54 days prior. More amazingly, the Angels hadn't been tied for first place since June 8th, 112 days earlier. The Rangers were still technically alive at 3 back, but needed to win the last 2 games of their series against the Angels to stay alive, since the A's and Angels would play each other on the final weekend. On Wednesday night in Arlington, Cameron Lowe made his first ever MLB start for the Rangers, as he made his first ever appearance on Sunday against the Mariners. The Angels picked up right where they left off the night before, as Jeff Devannon hit a 2-run triple in the first, then scored on Eric Young Sr.'s throwing error, making it 3-0. Although the Rangers, trying to keep their slim playoff hopes alive, would tie the game by scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the third. Down 3-4 in the top of the fifth, the Angels loaded the bases with no one out. Garrett Anderson hit a grounder to first and Teixeira threw to second for 1, but Michael Young's relay back to first was off the mark, scoring 2 runs, giving the Angels the lead. I'm questioning Teixeira's strategy to not play closer to the bag with a forced play at home, especially in an elimination game. Anyways, the Rangers tied it in the bottom half of the inning and looked to take the lead on Chad Allen's fly out to right field, but Vlad nailed Kevin Mench at the plate, trying to score from third. Would those sequence of events in the 5th inning come back to bite the Rangers? Well, they took the lead in the 8th, but in the 9th, Francisco Cordero, looking to save, and Vlad on first with 2 down, defensive replacement Curtis Pride hit a 2-out double to deep center field, and Vlad came all the way around to tie the game. It would remain tied into the 11th when Troy Glaus hit a 2-run homer to give the Angels the lead, and they won 8-7. The Angels now temporarily took a half-game lead in the division, depending on the A's-Mariners result later that night. The Rangers were now eliminated. The Rangers led the division nearly every day from June 22nd to July 30th, and led the division as recently as August 5th, but they had only played 500 balls since then, and would miss the playoffs for the 5th straight season. Nevertheless, it was their first winning season in 5 years, quite an improvement from the years when they had A-Rod. That night in Oakland, the A's had to win to remain tied with the Angels. They led 2-1 into the 8th, but Randy Winn reached on an infield single off starter Rich Harden's leg. Next up, Brett Boone doubled off the wall and left to put runners on second and third with only 1 out. Harden was lifted for Ricardo Rincon, who struck out Ibanez, but Ken Macher replaced Rincon with Jim Messier, who gave up a go-ahead 2-run single to Holbert Cabrera. The Mariners scored another that inning and won 4-2, helping out the Angels for the 2nd straight night. The Angels were now in sole possession of first place in the division for the first time since June 7th. The A's bullpen had its faults in games against the Rangers and Angels last week. Now it was at fault again against the M's tonight. On Thursday afternoon, the Rangers looked to avoid a 4-game sweep, and now play spoiler as they were eliminated from playoff contention. In the 2nd, rookie Adrian Gonzalez, yes, that Adrian Gonzalez, hit an RBI single off John Lackey to give the Rangers an early lead. In the 4th, the Angels tied it up on Vlad's 4th homer of the series, although Lackey ran into trouble in the 5th. He walked Kevin Mench with the bases loaded, then allowed a 2-run single to Gonzalez, giving the Rangers a 4-1 lead. In the 6th, Vlad hit another home run to cut the deficit to 2, but it wouldn't be enough, as the Rangers avoided the sweep, ending the Angels' 5-game winning streak, and helped out the A's for the day. Now, could the A's take advantage of the Angels' loss? In a scoreless game in the 3rd, Ichiro came up with 2 on and 2 out, and delivered an RBI single, his 256th hit of the season, just 1 shy of Sisler's record. In the bottom of the inning, also with 2 outs, Mark Kotsay hit a double to deep left center field. Catcher Adam Melhus was on first, and chugging around the bases trying to score, he was able to slide under the tag to tie the game at 1. The game was tied at 2 in the bottom of the 9th when rookie Bobby Crosby came up.
And the line, the pitch. Drive by Crosby, way back into left center field, and it is gone, and the A's have tied the Angels for the American League West League. Holy Toledo, Bobby Crosby.
The A's and Angels were now tied once again atop the division standings, entering their much-anticipated 3-game series at the Coliseum to close out the season. There were to be no play-in game. Whoever won the series would represent the AL West in the playoffs, and the loser would go home for the season. While the A's were delighted to have won on Thursday, I can't imagine they are delighted to have been in this position. Just 4 weeks ago, they led the division by 4 games, and only 6 days ago, they led the division by 3 games. For the most part, it was the pitching that had struggled in the month of September. Mark Mulder entered the month with 3.79 ERA, but had an ERA of nearly 9 in September. Mark Redmond's ERA was over 5. Rich Harden, despite having 2 good starts in the last week, also had an ERA over 5 in September. Tim Hudson entered the month with an ERA under 3, but also had an ERA over 6 in September. The bullpen hadn't fared much better. Since being acquired from the Astros in June, closer Octavio Dotel had blown 3 saves with the team, including that 2-run lead last week against the Rangers. The normally reliable Chad Bradford had an ERA over 4, while he never had an ERA over 3.2 in his previous 5 full seasons. Jim Messier blew 3 save attempts in September, 2 of which led to losses, including Wednesday night's loss. Additionally, the Rangers hadn't done the A's many favors in September, including their sweep and 9th-inning comeback the week prior. They also blew a 9th-inning lead to the Angels a couple days ago. If one or both of those save attempts had been converted, the A's would have a 1 or 2 game lead in the division right now, entering the final weekend. As the calendar turned to October, the Angels sent their ace Bartolo Colon to the mound on just 3 days' rest to face the struggling Mark Mulder. In the bottom of the first, Eric Chavez got a 2-out base hit off Colon. He tried to stretch it into a double, but overslid the bag and was tagged out before he could reach back, at least according to the umpire. In the next inning, the Angels had runner on second and third with no outs, and David Eckstein hit a grounder to second, which Marco Scutaro threw home. Once again, the bang bang call did not go the A's way, as Garrett Anderson was ruled safe, and the Angels struck first. The Angels scored 2 more that inning, then with 2 down and Sean Figgins on third, Darren Erstad bunted and reached on an infield single, scoring Figgins to give the Angels a 4-0 lead. Mulder only lasted 2 innings. The A's had the chance to get back into it with 2 on in the 5th, but Colon struck out Adam Melhuse looking to end the inning. In the 6th, with the bases loaded and 2 down, Alfredo Amezaga blew the game open with just his 2nd home run of the year, which also happened to be his 2nd Grand Slam of the year, off Joe Blanton. Colon pitched 7 scoreless innings as the Halos blanked the A's 10-0 in Game 1 of the series. After having at least a share of the division lead for 62 of the previous 64 days, the A's now found themselves on the brink of missing the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, before the last game of the season. By the way, that night in Seattle, Ichiro tied and passed George Sisler's single-season base hit record as the Mariners got their 63rd win of the season, ensuring they would not lose 100 games.
The West Coast now the epicenter of Major League Baseball on this final weekend. Anaheim got a huge performance last night, not only from Bartolo Colon, but would you believe from Alfredo Amezaga. His grand slam made it a lot easier for Colon to dazzle, and he did last night. The Angels stormed past the A's, a final of 10-0 to set it up this afternoon here in Oakland, a day when the Angels can clinch a trip to the playoffs here in 2004. The A's now in a situation where they need to win twice. Check the standings, 2 games left, and Oakland will need to win them both if they're going to go back to the postseason this year. Welcome to Oakland. Welcome to Major League Baseball on Fox.
On Saturday afternoon, the Athletics sent Barry Zito to the mound in this elimination game. The Angels sent Kelvin Escobar to the mound, who would be making his 2nd straight start on only 3 days' rest. Neither team got a runner past first in the first 2.5 innings, until Escobar gave up back-to-back singles to Mark Kotsay and Eric Burns in the bottom of the 3rd, placing runners at the corners with 1 out. Eric Chavez came out to the plate, wanting to atone for his gap the previous night.
Chavez with a bolt into right center field. Burns rumbling in, it's 2-0.
Zito was rolling for the A's, having only allowed 1 hit through 5 innings, and at one point retired 11 in a row. The A's threatened again in the bottom of the 5th. After Escobar retired the first 2, he walked Burns, then allowed a single to Eric Chavez, putting runners at the corners for Arubiel Durazo.
Got him to pop it up. Anderson coming on. The right fielder Guerrero will step in front and make the catch. The A's have stranded 5 through 5, but they lead by 2.
The Angels escaped trouble there. In the next inning, Sean Figgins broke up Zito's streak of retiring 11 in a row with a 1-out single, and a couple batters later, Vlad came up with 2 down.
And he unloads into left center field. Kotsay back. Vladimir Guerrero ties it up. with that sweet, effortless swing you just mentioned, jumping on the first pitch. And here's Anaheim, 2-2 in the sixth.
This team has done it time and time again, especially this month.
Who else? It was his 6th homer of the week and 39th of the season. However, the A's came right back. Jermaine Dye led off the next inning with a single, then a couple batters later, Damian Miller stepped up to the plate.
This one's into right center. Anderson tracking it. Garrett Anderson cannot get it. Guerrero's got to pick it up on the track. Jermaine Dye being windmilled around third. X times relay. Safe!
This knocked Kelvin Escobar out of the game. Brendan Donnelly came in to try to keep it a one-run game and struck out Bobby Crosby, but still had to face Marco Scutaro to get out of the inning.
For a year, we need runs.
There could be one right there. Vladimir Guerrero will not have a play on Miller. It's 4-2.
The A's got those 2 runs they gave up right back, and were just 9 outs away from forcing a winner-take-all matchup on Sunday. Zito pitched a 1-2-3 7th, but did not come back out for the 8th as he had thrown 114 pitches. Maka turned it over to Jim Messier, who hadn't pitched since allowing the go-ahead RBIs in the 8th inning in the loss to the Mariners on Wednesday. He gave up a leadoff single to Benji Molina, but struck out pinch hitter Curtis Pride. Then he allowed a single to Sean Figgins and was replaced by Ricardo Rincon, who had been one of the more reliable A's relievers in September with a 3.24 ERA for the month, but a WHIP of 1.8 in that time span. The first man he had to face was Darren Erstad.
Erstad slugs one. The first pitch he sees is into right field, and it is high up off the wall. Paul has scored. Figgins motoring to the plate. It's a 4-4 tie here in Oakland.
Just like that, the lead was gone. The A's bullpen, which had struggled all September, was struggling again in October. Vlad was intentionally walked, obviously, and Maka brought on the closer Octavio Dotel to keep the game tied. He got Troy Glaus to fly out to deep left, but still had to face longtime A's nemesis Garrett Anderson.
Garrett Anderson 1 for 3. Ground ball right side, base hit. Jermaine Dye is up with it. And the Angels have taken the lead.
In a matter of minutes, the A's went from 6 outs away from forcing a winner-take-all game on Sunday to just 6 outs away from being eliminated from the playoffs. K-Rod was brought on in the bottom of the 8th and walked Jermaine Dye to lead off the inning, but he struck out Scott Hatterman. Then he got pinch hitter Billy McMillan looking. Then Dye stole second, putting the tying run in scoring position for Bobby Crosby.
K-Rod struck out the side.
Troy Percival came on for the save in the bottom of the 9th, looking to send the Angels to the playoffs for the second time in 3 years and their first division title in 18 years.
Down the left field line and heading towards the corner. And the sliding catch made over there by Devannon. Towards left field, Jeff Devannon for out number 2. Why to hear the Angels in the A's. And Eric Burns will drive it to left. But the Anaheim Angels have won the West. Troy Percival saves it in the 9th inning. the Angels, who had trailed 4-2 in the 8th, stunned the Oakland bullpen with 3 runs in that 8th inning. They hang on and win it 5-4. They're the champions of the American League West.